Welcome back to another episode of the High Vibration Reset. I'm your host, Ciara Conlon. In today's episode, I speak to stress management specialist Mary Bradley. And Mary works with parents, students, and teachers to help them to manage stress and become more resilient. In our conversation, we spoke about what stress does to the body and brain, what resilience actually looks like, and Mary gave great advice about how to manage panic attacks, anxiety, and how to regulate ourselves in stressful moments. Before we get into the episode, I would like to ask you to please follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening in. This really helps us to reach more people. So let's get into today's episode. Mary, you are very welcome, and I'm delighted to have you here with us today.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be here as well.
Very good. So listen, to get started, would you tell us just a little bit more about who you are and how you got interested in, well, it's a topic we're all interested in, but specifically to, put your life on helping people with stress and well-being?
Yeah, so my career started in teaching. So I was a post-primary or secondary school teacher for about 10 years. But I remember kind of in the early days, when I was very young, my early 20s, I was in subbing and it was Christmas time. And I was in just supervising second year Christmas exams. And I was like, easy peasy. I don't even have to teach. I just have to be in the room. This is great. Then and they were second years. So I was like, the stakes are pretty low. This will be fine. And then within the space of 2 days, I came across 3 students having panic attacks. So this was very early on in my teaching. And I just remember, like, obviously I did my best in the moment and, it all turned out okay. But I was like, I never want to be in a position again where I don't know what to do in that moment. And there was a couple of people quite close to me as well at that time who were having issues with their mental health. And I guess that kind of, it spurred me on then a little bit. And I think in teaching, like one of the great things about teaching is you get so much CPD. And so any training that was going, and I remember Jigsaw was doing great training at the time for teachers and adults and anybody working with young people. So anything that was on the go, I was on top of. And I think then the more you learn, especially in this area, the more you learn, the more you realize there is so much more to learn. And then when COVID came along, and I was on maternity leave then as well around that time. So I had kind of a lot of thinking space, and I went and did a lot more research online, and I ended up doing I had already done training in mindfulness and youth mental health, and then I went on and did a diploma in meditation, which was gorgeous, and some breath work. And then I did an advanced diploma in CBT, which was great. And then eventually I went on then to study the Masters in Psychology of Mental Health and Wellbeing. And I guess that has really been kind of like the height of like my studies in the area. And I think like looking back on my time teaching, I can see how stressed and anxious a lot of the young people were. And I probably knew there was something going on, but maybe didn't have the words or just didn't have the right kind of language around what was going on with them or how I could support them. And I taught English. So in my school, you saw them every day. So you are one of those teachers who, you get really close with students and, some of them you have a great bond with. And for some students, I was that person that, they came to. And like, I think I just started to become more and more interested really in like the well-being and the mental health of young people and a little less interested in Shakespeare.
Oh no.
And I think that's just it's just growing naturally. And I think I started off maybe doing some stuff online and working, teaching mindfulness. And then it's just kind of the more I learn about it, the more I feel like I can help. And, it stress is one of those things, and it's the like you said there, everybody's interested, and it's a word that's just thrown around all the time now, and it's nearly normalized as a part of just modern life. And I really want to help people realize that there's a healthy stress and there's an unhealthy stress, and it's kind of finding our place within it and being able to reset
Yeah,
ourselves within it.
because we can't avoid it. It's part of life, and even more so part of life of late. But you don't
Absolutely.
just work with students, Mary, you work also with teachers and
Yes.
with parents.
Parents and teachers, yeah. And I think like there is huge research being done on teacher wellbeing at the minute, and DCU are producing some incredible research over the last couple of years on teacher wellbeing. And I think like when I look back on my own teaching career, a huge focus for me was student wellbeing. And I think that has been incredible, but it has put an awful lot of extra work and emotional load on teachers. And I don't think teachers have been supported adequately through that change in the expectations of their role. And 86% of Irish teachers, and that's primary across primary and secondary, are reporting feeling moderately to highly burnt out at the minute. 42% to the extent that they want to leave the career. It's the same in the north. It's 91% of teachers are feeling burnt out in the north. And I just think it's such a shame, because I haven't taught for such a long time, and I have some like very close friends who are incredible teachers, and teachers get into teaching because they want to make a change. They love working with young people. And it's like, I used to love teaching. I was one of those kind of lost souls through secondary school and even through university. Came out of university, didn't know what I wanted to do, and kind of fell into teaching by accident. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. This is brilliant. And then it just, even in the 10 years that I was teaching, and I think even more so in the few years that I've been out of the classroom, it has just changed so much. And if I had, €1 for every time somebody said to me, if they would just leave me alone to teach, I'd be fine. And that's it. Like, teachers want to be in the classroom with their students, helping them. And that's where teachers thrive, in their subject, preparing students and caring for students. And I just think the role has become much more complex and far more demanding than is reasonable or realistic to expect any person to be able to keep up with.
Is that what you think is is causing the stress and the burnout? It's the extra outside the classroom activities rather than what's happening at the moment. I would have assumed with the stress that the kids are under and with, a change in generation, it
Yeah.
seems to be the assumption that, kids are a little bit more outspoken, or, they don't do what they're told anymore. They have their own values and their own opinions. So is it a bit of both,
Yeah.
or do
I would say,
you
well,
believe
like,
it's
just to go back to what you first said there, like that the demands outside of the classroom, or like the extracurricular, like when I was teaching the extracurricular I was involved in, I loved it. It lit me up, and it kept me in teaching probably, longer than I would have stayed otherwise. Like, I was involved in the musicals. I would have run like um like lots of mental health awareness campaigns, and like those are the things that, teachers, it brings the meaning back for teachers, and they can connect with the meaning. And it's such a great opportunity to connect with students and your own passions and everything. So I don't know if it's necessarily the extracurricular, but what I found was, whenever I went back to teaching after having my little boy, is I didn't have time for the extracurricular. So maybe the meaning and the sense of accomplishment and achievement that I would have got from things like the musical or whatever it was, or the show, or Strictly, it was all sorts, lip sync battles or whatever, that I didn't have the time or the energy for that. And so that wasn't maybe kind of nourishing me in the way that I had been doing before. But what's happening now, it's more the administrative load And it's initiative overload. Like, there are so many circulars, so many changes, so many reforms coming in that teachers feel like they don't have time to catch their breath, get caught up on these new changes, new whatever, and then keep on top of the day to day, and then be looking out for their students, and then reports and admin, and then, individual support plans and everything. So I think that's a huge challenge for teachers. And like, because parents are more stressed and teenagers are more stressed and anxious, it all feeds into each other, and kind of it makes everything a little bit more difficult when everybody's baseline is a stressful place. It makes us all a little less better equipped to see like creative solutions or to engage with people in a harmonious way or connect, because we're all just like, it's just survival mode. That's the body, the brain's priority in those moments. So I think that like, from the teachers that I'd be chatting to now, it's just the immense workload. And it's not so much the kids. Like, whenever, like, again, going back to my own teaching career, like, I taught in like the school I taught and I loved, and I get the opportunity to go back in every now and again to like deliver workshops and stuff. And the kids in that school are amazing. And I was in another school there last week, an all boys school, and like, the kids were amazing. Like, they were so lovely. They said hello to every teacher that passed them in the hall. And like, I think sometimes young ones are getting a bit of a bad rep these days, but I don't think the kids are not the problem.
Maybe that's just kids from Donegal or good kids,
Yeah,
Mary. Maybe
well,
that's your.
it probably is. Things are different up here. We're all wonderful. But I think it's more of a systemic thing. I think like the teacher burnout the research on this goes back to the 70s. It's not a new thing. It's not like, it probably has been exacerbated and kind of influenced in ways kind of that we haven't been able to keep up with the modern world. But like, I don't like, to me, I don't think we should be blaming parents or kids. The pressure that's coming from like the changes, the initiative overload, the system,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
And it's funny because a couple of years ago when I started working or helping women with overwhelm and burnout was what started coming up. But a huge percentage of the women that were reaching out to me were in healthcare and education. And I just thought that was so sad. The two major systems that we need to work, and so many people working in it are at their edge. But that just brings me to, and you kind of answer the question there, was, is it the system or do people need to take personal responsibility?
Combination, I think. Like, I think there needs to be huge changes in the system and how teachers are resourced. And like, I think even when it comes to like initial teacher training, like their qualifications, like being equipped with, the tools for resilience and self-awareness and all of that, research shows that is a huge protective factor for burnout. But there is also a lot of personal responsibility in it, because it's like one of those things, we have a limited amount of control over the system, and we know systems are very slow to change. And whenever you are in a place where you're highly stressed or burnt out, you're fighting to get through the day, never mind trying to fight the system. So there is personal responsibility there, where you can start to look at where you can scrape back, a bit of your own time, a bit of your own energy. And that is hard in teaching, because you feel, and it's in the healthcare as well, like any role where you're caring for people, or other people's success depends on you showing up. It's very hard to step back, and when you feel like other people are relying on you, and people that you really care about, you've been teaching them for maybe 5 or 6 years or whatever, and it's hard to step away. And you just have to have trust in the system, or not in the system, but that it will be fine. That, like, I remember finding that difficult whenever I did step away. There was a couple of kids who, and their faces would still pop into my head, who you were worried about how they were going to get on because you weren't there. And like, I was in a great school, so I knew other people. I wasn't the only person, looking out for that kid or whatever. So I think, and recognizing as well that if you get to a point where you're completely burnt out, you're no good to anybody. So it's kind of trying to build in little systems. And I think having our own ability to emotionally regulate. And I think especially in the caring professions, um, and I was working with another kind of government organization recently who deal with families in crisis all the time. And like, for a lot of the people that I work with, I would say, take 10 minutes at the end of the day to emotionally regulate yourself before you step into the house or you get into the car, whatever it is, so that you're not bringing the work version of you into your home. But I think for people who are working in those kind of professions, that needs to be built in throughout the day. Like 10 minutes at the end of the day is not enough. You need those breaks, even if it's, like in secondary schools, obviously everybody's changing class every 40 minutes or every hour, that you take that opportunity. Or like, this is something that it sounds so simple, but it's taking your break, taking your lunch. Like, people work through their breaks and their lunch all the time. They're missing out on that moment of any kind of slowness, or like re-energizing, like whether that, like, not even having food or water. And then, it's very hard then to push through a day when that's your baseline.
So the break is a trigger for your emotional regulation, or for whatever other ritual or habit is going to help
That's
you
it.
to manage the stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, and this is the same for whether you're a teacher or whether you're a parent, or, wherever
Yeah.
you work. These kind of checkpoints in the
Yes.
day. So when you're
Yeah.
working with somebody, Mary, how do you advise or help people to ensure that they're getting enough of that reset, of
Yeah.
those reset moments during the day?
Just start really small. Start really small, because I think if you are in a place where you're highly stressed or burnt out already, somebody to come along and say, right, you need to stop doing all this and start doing all this, it's even more overwhelming. And whenever you're stressed and burnt out, like, procrastination and avoidance are huge, huge things, huge behaviors in that place. And it can just be like, no, and your body is always going to stick, your body and your brain are always going to stay with what's familiar over what is uncertain, even though it might be better. So I would just say, starting really, really small, pick one place where you can slow down, even if it's like that, taking your break. And one of the things that's funny, like, this comes up in lots of different workplaces and with parents as well, and I find myself doing it all the time, is even when you have sufficient amount of time for your break, that you're eating in a pure rush. Like, you're eating, like, you have to get up and run straight away after, and oftentimes we don't. So it's even just like taking 3 breaths to regulate yourself before you eat, so that you can be, and not using your phone maybe for that time while you're eating. And because distraction is one of, like, the major coping mechanisms that we use for stress. Is like, oh, I'm stressed, I'm just going to distract myself, scroll, scroll, scroll. But it's kind of picking one little part of your day that can just be slow, and building that sense of familiarity, of slowness, and a little bit of quiet, or even if it's not quiet, but like a little bit of slowness, that your body starts to feel familiar with what slowness and safety feels like. And then you can start to, once you kind of are in that place, you can start to build up more moments like that through your day, and start to look at, like what you said there, like triggers. Like, is it like, is there something particular triggering this response right now? Or is it just that I'm in this place and I've, something happened last week and I'm still stuck in a stress response from it. So it's, I think, building a little bit of self-awareness and picking some small place to be slow. And even if it's a 10-minute walk, it's just picking some little time for yourself that you can protect, and be slow in it.
So if you had said that to me, my kids are all grown up now, but if you had said that to me when I was in the thick of it, the word slow would have triggered me in a different
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
So, for parents or people who are really busy, they just don't think it's possible to slow down.
hmm And I am so guilty of this myself as well. I have two little boys. They're nearly 3, nearly 5. So, like, it's chaos. They're the best wee boys in the whole world, and I love them with all my heart. But there are moments where, and especially in the morning, and it's trying to get them out the house. It's never just one thing. Like, it's, that they won't put on their socks, and then it's that they won't eat their breakfast, and then there's traffic, and then there's this, and it builds and builds and builds. But what I would try to say to people is start to notice early on in that moment where are you starting to notice that you're getting a bit snappy? Are your shoulders tight? Are you, like, notice what's going on in your body? And, like, I would find myself mornings as well, completely in a rush, trying to get them out of the door and, like, all up to high-do, even though we've plenty of time. So it's like sometimes that Billy Joel lyric from Vienna, slow down, you're doing fine. Slow down, you're doing fine. And it's that sometimes it's like that, it's also that reminder, like, whenever we are in that stress response, everything feels like life or death. Like, your body goes to that place where it's like, I'm being chased by a lion right now, and trying to get them out the door in the morning sometimes feels like I'm being chased by a lion. And I just have to remind myself that, like, there's no lion here. Worst that can happen is we're 5 minutes late. There's no lion. Slow down. I'm doing fine. Slow down. I'm doing fine. I need to, like, write it above my back door, I think.
Absolutely. That was one of the things I had on my computer screen years ago, a post-it
Yeah.
note that said breathe,
Yeah.
because I had all of a sudden got aware or become more aware that I was tensing, not breathing properly while I was rushing to get everything
Yeah.
done. And I think, what you're describing there in the morning time, there's so many people that are in that phase of life, so many people who are past that phase of life and grateful that they're past it. But a
Yeah.
lot of it is our perception
Yeah.
of what's going on. So as you say, you're able to tell yourself what's the worst that can happen. We'll be 5 minutes late. But when we get ourselves into that mode of fast move, this isn't right, we're going to be late. And it's that inner dialogue that perpetuates or exaggerates what's actually going on here. So have you any advice for how we shift out of
Yeah.
that inner dialogue that actually
Yeah.
worsens the stress response?
That's it. And I think, like you said, one of the first things you said there was our perspective on stress. And I think, like, stress has been kind of demonized a little bit uh, in recent years. Like, I think, like, the explosion of the wellness industry and the wellbeing industry has been incredible, but also sometimes there's this expectation that we see, maybe on social media or wherever, that we have to be happy and calm and relaxed all the time. And that is just not reality. And for people to feel that pressure, first of all, is a lot to be feeling like, and especially like that moment for mothers, like when you're rushing out the door and somebody's telling you, oh, it's the best years, they'll rush in, savor them all. And you're like, ah. So first of all, acknowledging, like, it's stressful and stress is normal. Like every other emotion, it's a perfectly valid human response. And like for those mornings where you're like rushing out the door and you're stressed, it's like, I'm stressed because I care that they are there on time to start their wee day. And that's why I'm stressed right now. So I use ABC. So I do this with parents in the workplace, with teenagers, everybody. So first of all, just acknowledge and name it, like, I am stressed right now. I'm in a rush. I'm afraid we're going to be late. And just acknowledging it. And like, I'm frustrated or I'm disappointed. I'm angry. I'm jealous. I feel guilty, whatever it is, name it. And just allow it. Like, sometimes I think the modern world likes to make us feel like we have to rush through our emotions or fix them, or that they're not allowed because they're like negative emotions, but they're all just part of the human experience. So acknowledging it, allowing it, accepting it. And they say that whenever you do that, when you allow the emotion in, that it passes much quicker, because every emotion is like a visitor. It comes and it goes, or like a wave on the shore. It comes and it goes. And then the second thing is noticing what's going on in your body. So like you said there, like it could be the tightness. Like for me, I find it tightness in my jaw and in my shoulders, and I can just feel my body tightening up. And then noticing your breath. So even if it's, 3 breaths, like I did this with a group of fellas, fifth years last day, and they all had their smartwatches on. And I was like, let's see the difference that 3 breaths can make in your heart rate. And like 3 slow, deep breaths, like you can count them, do 4, in for 4 and out for 6. But even those 3, they were able to see that their heart rate had dropped. If you are, for some people, the breath is just, they might be in a place where they're feeling a little bit too overwhelmed and the breath just doesn't feel accessible. Just go and run your wrists under cold water, or get a bit of ice out of the freezer, or some people keep a spoon in their freezer and put it on their wrists or like behind their ear, and that cold shock kind of regulates the nervous system a little bit. And then C is choice. So, like, what is one small choice that I have in the here and the now that is just going to make things a little bit better? And you don't have to have the whole picture planned out, the long term solution. It's just in the here and the now. What is one thing that's going to make this moment a little bit more manageable or better for me? And like for me, it's often music, music in the car, or music like just it helps. It helps me. So I use that all the time. And whenever you have kids as well, like allow them seeing you do it, like modeling that system for them. Like I think that's one of the things that as parents we find really difficult, is like managing and especially with teachers as well, like it's that emotional load, managing your own emotions around kids, because we don't want to show them us feeling sad or stressed or worried. But kids know one way or the other that something's going on. So being able to name it for them, be like, right, I'm a bit stressed right now because I think we're going to be late. Boys, come on. And then be like, right, mommy's going to take a wee breath. We're going to take 3 breaths, and then we're going to put on some nice music in the car, and that's us away. And like, I'm better able to like manage the rest of the morning, or like even silly things like when you're in that really highly stressed place, like the brain fog that kicks in is immense. And like the pair of shoes that I'm trying to find that are probably sitting right in front of me that I'll see as soon as I get back in the door, like I can't find them anywhere. I take a couple of breaths, slow myself down, that part of my brain will come back online. So that ABC, acknowledge, check what's going on in your body, and your choice is magic for me.
Very good. So acknowledge body rather than breath, and maybe the
Yeah,
breath
because for
coming
some
into.
people it might be like, especially for some people, the breath, it might just not be their thing. So another thing actually that you can do there is a progressive muscle relaxation, where you tighten different parts of your muscles, hold it for 3 seconds and then release it. Or for some people, it's just like shaking the hands, bouncing on your toes, letting a little bit of that adrenaline release, give it somewhere to go. Yeah.
But it's really about, in the big picture, acknowledging that this will make a difference. Because I think a lot of the time we think we don't have time to stop. And if we do these little exercises or techniques that we've been taught, they're not really going to make a difference. And that again is back to how we're thinking about it, but also it's the accumulation of them. When we habitualize these small little behaviors and put in these little resets in our day, over time, it has that bigger impact.
That's it. And it's that neuroplasticity. You're building those new pathways in your brain those things, when you start doing them, are hard and they're messy, and it doesn't work out every time, and you can be impatient with yourself and like, why isn't this working today? And you just keep going with it until it becomes a system that's familiar to you, and it'll kick in quicker each time you do it then. So it's like building the reps, building that muscle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So talk to me, Mary, about parents and children in terms of, I remember one of my friends was going through a phase with her child who was suffering from anxiety, and the therapists or the counselors were blaming her, putting the focus back on her. So how much do you think parents are responsible for the anxiety that kids are feeling? How much do you think it's their own dysregulated state that impacts, and how much is external? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
I think, like, parents are up against a lot at the minute. Like, whenever, like, I'll maybe just start with some of the things that I think are going on with teenagers. So, and like, parents, I would say parents' role in it is, like, they can be the protective factor. So with teenagers, they have so much going on right now, and especially this time of year, like exam stress, social pressure, all of that. Um, and there's so much uncertainty for young people, which I think really, leans into the anxiety, like uncertainty around, like, even the things that just weren't on my radar as a teenager at all, like the job market, like housing, the price of fuel, what's going on, like, in the wider cultural context. Um, there's so much uncertainty around all of that, and like even the climate. And when I think back to my own teenage years, like whatever little snippet I caught on the 6-1 News when my daddy was watching TV after the dinner was what was probably the height of what I got. Whereas they are exposed to it constantly, and they have that, but they also have like this scoreboard of like how they're doing compared to everybody else, and it's at the tip of their fingers all the time. So, and that's like socially, academically. Like, I remember being on TikTok around exam time and seeing kids who were up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning studying, and then for other kids seeing that anyway. So there's a lot going on for teenagers. I think the piece that parents have to play is the protective factor. So one of the huge things that we can do as parents is model how we deal with stress ourselves, and uncertainty and anxiety. And like, that's something, as a parent, you have to go and take responsibility for yourself. Like, look at how you are handling stressful times, how you handle anxiety, how you handle setbacks, how you handle rejection, all of those things. And think about, is this how I handle it? Is that the way I want my child to handle it? So we can tell our kids, do this and do this and think like this and just try doing this. But if we're not doing it ourselves, it's it loses its impact. So it's more down to what they see us doing, and seeing that, like, one of the things, and I think I understand it so much better now myself as a parent, is that we want to protect and fix everything. Like, I want to protect my son from any sadness, from any disappointment, from anybody being mean to him, from any sort of failure. I want him to just live in a little bubble where he's happy and safe all the time. But that's not reality. And the other thing then is, like, I even noticed myself doing it last night. They were trying to build a fort and it wasn't going well, and it was 7:30 and the two of them were wrecked, and I was like, this is, they weren't happy. And I could have got, like, I was very tempted to just go in and be like, no, if we do all this now, this will, you know, and then I was like, do you remember all the other times where you figured it out, where you knew what to do? Remember when Mammy's watch fell behind the radiator and you figured out how to get, like, you do that with teenagers as well. Like, remind them of all the times that they did handle things well. And, we can, I remember hearing somebody describe it with parents and teenagers that, like, as a parent of a toddler, you're the manager. You're going in and you're telling them what to do and you're accounting for all their time and everything. But as a parent of a teenager, you're a consultant. So you are just there and they pull you in when you need them. So allowing that little bit of distance and letting them come to you and allowing the conversation to be a little bit more curious as to what's going on with them, and see if you can guide them to find their own solutions. Because I know, like, as parents, we just want to wave a magic wand and fix it and it'll all be okay. And you probably know, like, in the long run, like, this isn't a big deal and you'll be fine. But in the moment, it feels like their world is collapsing around them. So it's like validating, first of all, like validating and listen, yeah, God, that is tough. That's tough. Sounds like you've had a tight day. And, letting them spill it all out, whatever it is they're going to say, just listening. Like, there's nothing worse than when you're having a hard time and somebody being like, yeah, but it's not a big deal. Like, it'll be fine. You'll be grand, and all you want is somebody to be like, yeah, no, that's really hard. So allowing for that and be like, yeah, do you know what? Exams are really stressful, but do you know what? Remember all them other stressful things you've done in the past and you got through them all? Or do you remember that time something didn't go well? And remember, you actually handled that quite well too. So that's what I would say is kind of like allowing them to, and like one of the things that I think, because there is so much more conversation around mental health and well-being now, is that parents sometimes are a little bit terrified whenever they see their kids being really upset and crying, and you're thinking, is this, and it's they're allowed to be disappointed that you're not allowing them out at the weekend. They're allowed to be disappointed that their exams didn't go as well as they'd hoped. And, that's their responsibility to get back on top of things. And it's not your responsibility to, like, write a note to the teacher. Like, it's a natural, like, letting kids deal with the natural consequences of their actions, as opposed to, like, diving in and fixing things. And it's like, if we think of kids as, like, resilient as a baseline and, like, think they can handle this, and I'll step in and guide and support if they can't.
Yeah, yeah. So we go from being a micromanager to gradually becoming their
Yeah.
coach and,
Yeah, a coach, yeah.
maybe a bit of a companion. But I remember that with one of my kids, and what was it I used to say about there's a fine line between letting go and neglect.
Yeah.
Because I knew, we start off obviously as that micromanager, controlling every part of our child's life. And then gradually we need to let go a little bit and let them learn things and make their mistakes. But then when they get to that teenage place, it's very difficult. I used to be, my kids used to accuse me of being overprotective. You're so overprotective, Mom. And I go, yeah, and I'm proud of it, but I wasn't
Yeah.
overprotective. I was
Yeah.
just concerned. But it is that piece of allowing them to make their mistakes, of not controlling every moment, as you said, and
Yeah.
telling them exactly what they should be doing. And nobody gets that right. First
Nobody.
off, it's
No,
a gradual learning on both sides. So not to
absolutely.
be so hard on ourselves, not to beat ourselves up, because we will make
Yeah.
mistakes. As
Yeah.
long as you have that pot of savings for your kids' therapy when they grow up, we're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Like, parenting is so messy. Like, and, working with kids or teenagers or whatever, it's messy. There's no such thing as a perfect teenager, no such thing as a perfect teacher or parent or coach or whatever. Everybody, if you just like bring yourself back to everybody's just out here doing the best with what they have, with the energy, the resources, the knowledge, the experience that they have at this moment in time. And like, I think I remember, I can't remember now her name, but I remember on the back of her book it says like, um, if you're doing well 30% of the time as a parent, that's perfectly imperfect. And I just think because, like, especially for me now, like working in the area that I do, I think sometimes I do put that pressure on myself. Like, I know all of this stuff. Why am I still getting snappy, or why am I still feeling guilty about this? Why am I still, why is it like I have all this information and I'm still making mistakes? And it's like, I'm human. I'm human and I'm tired and, I'm hungry, or things didn't go well at work today or whatever. That, we're all showing up doing the best that we can, and same as teenagers, like, and think if we can give ourselves, like, everybody a little bit of grace and compassion and just keep trying to move forward with it. Keep trying.
Yeah. And as you say, you think as a coach or, as a manager or as a parent or whatever, I should know better. As
Yeah.
I tell myself, as a mindset coach, as a mindset expert, and I still get annoyed with myself when I hit a bad shot in tennis and say, I should know better. I shouldn't be getting annoyed. Anyway, talk to me, Mary, about panic attacks. So you said at the beginning of this journey, you were helping kids with panic attacks when you didn't really know the full, maybe
Yeah.
science or what exactly was going on. So
Yeah.
now, what is the best way to deal with it personally, or if you see it with another
Yeah.
person?
So it's, I think, like, the first thing is, it depends where it's happening. And, like, say, for example, it's in a public place, first thing you'd want to do is try and guide them gently to a place where they're less exposed, where there's less eyes on them, just so it feels a little safer, if that's possible. Maybe you're at home and so that's not the case at all, but like, as few people as possible in kind of a place that feels a bit safer and quieter. That's the first thing. And then the next thing is, like, depending on your relationship with the person, you might know if they've already had panic attacks or if this is a familiar thing to them. It could be a complete stranger or a student you've never worked with before. And so you might be like, has this happened to you before? And if it has, then you can tell them, like, what's happening now. You're having a panic attack. This feels horrendous, and I'm sure it feels very scary and very unpleasant and very uncomfortable in your body, but this is going to pass. And like, everything about you has to project that sense of safety. So your tone is very balanced and quiet and steady. Your own breathing, everything about you projects safety, because whenever we're like, as humans, we are reading everybody all the time for something being off. Am I safe here? Is this a safe person? So everything about you projects safety. And then, like, which would have been my instinct back then, like, just take deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths. You'll be fine. And that can be more frustrating whenever somebody's having a panic attack, because it literally feels like their heart's going to explode. They can't catch their breath at all. So in that moment, if you can, start with the cold. If you can get cold water or ice, or like that, the cold spoon, or if you're in a school, it'll be ice packs, whatever, something cold onto the wrists or like behind the ear. And then, like, all the time, like, this is going to pass. This is a panic attack. This is going to pass. You're safe. And like, just very, very calm in your own demeanor. And then if you find then that the cold has started to kind of regulate them a little bit, then you go into the breathing and do it with them. So whenever somebody's having a panic attack, their senses can be a little out of whack. So they might totally be able to hear what you're saying, or it'll be real brain fog, like they might not be able to process really what you're saying. So doing it with them, and like yourself, like let it be quite visual so that they can follow along with you. And then for some people as well, their body is absolutely flooded with adrenaline, and so they might be really shaky and their muscles are really tense. So like what I would sometimes do is like let them take my hands and like squeeze my hands and then release, squeeze my hands and then release. And then, kind of gauging where they're like, hopefully at that stage, they're kind of coming down. And again, like at the end, you did really well getting through that. Like, that was tough. And you're going to like, and panic attacks are exhausting. So, like, expecting somebody to go back into the classroom or whatever, or
Right.
back into the workplace after that, I would try and, build a little bit of grace time for them there, or even like, depending on the situation, like maybe being able to send them home, because it is absolutely exhausting, and like mentally, emotionally, and then for teenagers as well, it's so embarrassing that that their whole class saw them do this, and they might just want some space and time away from that. But the cold, or sorry, safe place, your own calm demeanor, cold, then the breathing, and then the muscle relaxation. And then just like reassurance, you did really well through that. That was not easy. And like hopefully be able to build in some rest for them then.
So the same for yourself, obviously, if
Yeah.
you're experiencing.
Yeah. And
And
noticing, being able, if you are familiar like with that, if it's happened to you before, like noticing the early warning signs, like your heart or your breathing or the brain fog, like I can't think straight here, what's going on, and stepping away. And if you need to bring yourself to the bathroom, go sit in the car, whatever it is. Or if there's somebody at home just being like, I need some ice. And, if it's something, it's one of the things I would often do with people as well. I would do a little guide for the people who are closest to them, people at home, parents or schools, whatever it is, that like they know, if I'm starting to feel like this, you need to bring me ice or a cold spoon, whatever it is. And like knowing what like the people around you know what you need in those
yeah.
moments.
So resilience is such a buzzword at the moment.
Hmm.
How do we become more resilient?
I think it kind of goes back to probably a lot of what I've already said, is like resilience. I think sometimes people mistake resilience with like just being really tough and not feeling anything, and not finding anything hard, not finding anything stressful, or never getting angry or upset. And not that's not what it is. Like resilience, I think it's a mixture of like emotional regulation and self-awareness, and being able to reflect on when things did go well and how you handled that, and when they didn't. But it's the ability as well, like I guess, to be flexible and to adapt to our surroundings, and being able to accept the things that I can control, and putting your energy into those, and the accepting the things that you can't control and how you're going to manage those. But it's regulating yourself in difficult moments, and acknowledging this is difficult, this is hard, this is stressful, and not having to hide that. And a big part of resilience is being able to ask for support as well. Like whether it's in the workplace or as a teenager or a parent or whatever, being able to recognize and having that like good network of support. Maybe it's a close friend, or it's, a go-to person, and using that, because people want, like the people who love you and the people who care for you want to help and are delighted to support you. So using your support systems, um, and being able to rest and slow down whenever you need it without feeling guilty as well. And that takes a lot of practice. And like and it's a huge thing in teaching as well, is that people work and work and work, and it's the whole run up to, say, Christmas, for example. It's all
Yeah.
go, 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 go. And then as soon as people get the Christmas holidays, everybody has the flu then for 2 weeks, because you've worked to the point, like your body's like, right, let's keep going, let's keep going. And then as soon as you get a break, it's like all the defenses are down and you get sick. So it's being able to give yourself the grace to take rest when you need it, like build in the rest in your lifestyle, and being able to respond to challenge without it being like a knee jerk reaction. So knowing, like, again, going back to like, what are the controllables for me right in this moment? Like, how can I control, or like put my energy into what I can control, and, accepting the rest, and being able to respond in a way that's, because whenever we're stressed, we really get stuck in our amygdala, which is a very reactive, emotional place. So it's like creating a little bit of space between yourself and the challenge, so that you can be like, okay, knowing who I am and my values and what's important to me and my character and my experiences, how am I going to respond to this? It's like people sometimes will say it's about bouncing back or whatever, but it's also about bouncing forward. Like, you don't want to just keep bouncing on the same spot up and down. It's like being able to keep going with the game and moving
Absolutely.
forward. Like looking at, right, this was a disaster. This did not go well. So let's reflect on that without getting sucked into like all of that self-criticism. And like a bit of that's going to come up. That's normal. It's natural. But without letting that overwhelm you, like being able to reflect and be like, okay, so I handled this well. This didn't go well. This needs to change. And that's how I'm going to keep bouncing forward. And for parents and teenagers as well, one of the big things, like I just go back to what I said earlier, is about letting them have those emotional experiences where they're disappointed or where things are hard or stressful, and letting them feel that, like, instead of trying to fix it or rush them through it, like letting them feel that. And then as adults, then they're familiar with what it's like to be disappointed, and they can handle it, and they have all of these little micro experiences in the bank of, well, the last time I was disappointed, I was disappointed for a day or two and I was actually okay then. So I know this is going to pass. But if we try and protect them from every hardship or every consequence, or like, if they haven't done their homework and they get in trouble with their teacher, like, and they're upset about that, that's all really natural and normal. Like, allow them to work through that process of being, upset that the teacher gave out to them because they didn't do their homework. Like, that's the order of things. And allowing them to work through that and knowing that, I'll be upset, but I'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the ways I get my clients to think about, managing their stress or increasing performance is splitting the day into 4. So you have your pre-work, that includes your morning rituals, the things that you decide, whether it's meditation, yoga, your exercise. So that sets you up for the day. Then there's during work, and that's, whether we manage our calendar and our workflow well, but also those reset moments that we spoke about. But then the third part is the one that I think, and you mentioned this as well, Mary, the thing where a lot of people fail to do this, and that's the post work. And that's the time where we disconnect, where we decompress,
Yeah.
where we allow our bodies to decompress, but we also allow our mind to let go of the day. So
Yeah.
whether that's doing, your daily wrap up or reviewing the day or doing your reflection before you go home, because only when we have that peace can our body then go into recovery. Can we actually get the rest and benefit from the rest? So I think that's a good way for people to think about it, is in those 4 pieces, and to kind of look at, where can I improve, or where do I need to establish a new habit or ritual that might help me to manage my stress better.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's like, I love what you said there, Ciara, about the daily wrap, because that lives in people's heads all evening unless they give it that little bit of time and space to actually be processed. So it's brilliant.
And for you, Mary, is there a non-negotiable habit that you need to do daily?
Yeah, I'm pretty good with my mindfulness now. I like, again, not perfect. There are days where it doesn't happen, but it's pretty much my non-negotiable. And I it just it slows me down, and it shifts me because I work from home a lot, and then it's like going from that, busy, busy, busy. And then it's all go then for a couple hours in the evening with two little boys. And then it's that point in the evening where I'm like, okay, I actually can sit down now and relax. And I'm still like wired. And I have to be purposeful about how I shift my, my state from that like busy work stress place, which is really helpful when I'm trying to get through the day. But it's, when I do have that opportunity to relax, I'm like, okay, and like that as well, like, I'm sure you find the same, like, running your own business, it never stops in your own head, and sometimes it's great because it's the creative part of things. And then other times it's like, oh, that invoice or that whatever it is. And it's like, okay, it's 9:30 at night. I'm not going to sit and do that. So it's just the, it just gives me that like permission to switch off and like just shifts my brain into a slower place. And it's like acknowledging that all those thoughts are going, and those are all like legitimate thoughts and they all need to be dealt with and whatever, but just not right now. Not right now. Yeah.
So be where your feet are.
Yes. Yeah. I love that, Kira. Yeah. Be where your feet are.
So, how can my listeners find out more about you, Mary?
You can find me on Instagram. It's probably where I'm most active. So it's Mary Bradley Wellbeing. And then LinkedIn and my website as well. It's all just Mary Bradley Wellbeing. And yeah, I mostly go into like schools and workplaces, and I do some one-to-one stuff as well. So if anybody um, you know, wants to get in contact, please do. Sure, I'll only be delighted to hear from you.
Fantastic. We'll add your details in the show notes.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for giving us some time in your busy schedule.
that was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in, and you'll find all of Mary's details below in the show notes. Now, if you're a school and you want to get Mary in to do a talk, she can do one for teachers, for students, or for parents. And this is something that I think is really necessary in the environment we find ourselves today. Now, if you're an organization and you're interested in team stress management, I do a talk called Performance Under Pressure, or you may be interested in a longer team reset program. Reach out to me to find out more. Once again, please follow and share the podcast, and have a wonderful inner day.